So in the last video, we built ourselves a new gear diff that's going to be going into this awesome new aluminum transmission case in the back, of course, of our R1 DC1 drag car. So in today's video, what we're going to do is we're just going to put the transmission together, because once we get this key piece done, a lot of things on the DC1 back there on the rear end are really going to change. So we're going to go through the whole build process and all that stuff, as many as you know. I'm Chad, this is the Dorkcam40 RC channel. We are going to make you faster today. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. If you want to know how this was done, there'll be an entire playlist actually for this entire build that'll be in the description below, and you guys can check that out. We'll be rebuilding the whole car, including wiring up the ESC, all that kind of stuff, getting this baby ready to go. And I know a lot of you, a couple comments about, hey, go race 60 foot indoors. No interest in that right now. We're drone racing. So let's get to this build here. Now, we got all the parts that we need, of course, and when it comes to this actual transmission case, you're going to need to have all R1 parts. It just, the tolerances are built to their spec. They're not built to like associated or other B6 type of part components. So that is one of the things. Going to increase the cost a little bit, but if you're down this rabbit hole already, you probably do not care. Now, one of the other things to think about is, do you really need this compared to, like, let's say a plastic laydown? And I will tell you, you know, having different B6 cars and buggies and stuff like that, and then all the ones that I ran, like the 5-star, you know, the plastic cases, the moldings are good, but they're not great. They just don't kind of fit together correctly. There's, you know, a little bit of slop, a little bit of play. You get a little bit of rubbing and stuff. I mean, it's going to be fine for like, I mean, it was fine for me forever. It ran great. You know, this is definitely a better option. You know, not only does it look cool, but it also, like I spoke about, you know, there's a lot of different functions that's involved in this, as far as how the entire rear end is going to change. You know, you got a new shock tower and everything else like that. So that might be just a few reasons why you want this baby. So as I was looking through it too, I noticed something really cool, and this talks about like transmissions and lubrication and stuff. You know, in the gear diff video, we talked about using, you know, some anti-wear grease and stuff like that on our outdrive shafts and stuff. And one of the big things about transmissions is a lot of people really like to run them pretty dry. It's kind of like you don't really need these things. We're not running a crawler here, so it doesn't need to be packed up with fluid and grease and everything else like that. And it looks like R1, actually, I kind of was looking around at this, why we got this like super tiny little screw, and it actually looks like this screw here kind of goes to nowhere. You can see that screw hole here, and you can just put that in there a little bit. You don't want to thread it in all the way. In fact, you know, the threads kind of stop when you're screwing it in. In fact, you might even want to try to get a smaller screw, but that is going to be great because that will allow me to lubricate the transmission with just something simple like some bearing oil, you know, just real simple. You might want to take a little bit of anti-wear, black grease type of stuff and put that in there in the beginning if you want to, but I'm not going to. We want it to be as smooth and dry as possible. It's going to pick up, even though, you know, it's sealed and everything like that. There's going to get a lot of dirt and dust and debris and stuff like that inside here, and it's going to be just part of your normal transmission diff service, taking this thing apart and cleaning everything out and seeing if there's any, you know, excessive rubbing or anything like that. You know, we also got some shims that are here that we're going to need to shim the diff out a little bit. You know, inside the actual manual for the DC1, they talk about shimming the actual diff on the stand-up transmission. And of course, you know, we'll probably have to do that as well on this transmission. You can see that they actually have some shims going underneath the bearings there. So let's just hop to it here and get things going. So we've got our transmission halves here. We can start pretty much wherever we want to. I guess we can just go ahead and start with the actual top shaft, and we're just going to basically take some of our bearings here and put those on, and then we will just take the top shaft, and you got two sides to this. You got like your short side and your long side. So I'm just going to put the top shaft actually in the long side here. That's where we want that. And we'll just kind of stick that like that. The next thing we have is our idler gear, and you are going to have two bearings that is going to go on the idler gear shaft. Make sure if you are converting from an actual stand-up transmission that you get the appropriate sized idler gear, because the teeth count is different. And then we'll just take the actual idler gear pin. It's not a bad place actually on this pin to put a little bit of black grease, so I think I will do that. So we'll just pop that up and just get a little bit on there. Doesn't need to be a whole lot. And we'll just rub that in and then just wipe our excess on the pit mat here. And flip that bearing around. All right, now we're just going to put that in there and we are good. And now it's going to come down to the actual diff. So the transmission is going to be sitting in our car like that. So here's the back, here's the front. And I'm trying to figure out exactly how we want this all to line up. So I'm going to have my diff go in this way. And I believe we've got two different sized actual shims here. It's going to be pretty hard to get much of a measurement out of either one of them. 0.06. Looks like that one is a little bit thicker. 0.15. 0.06. Okay, 0.17. So we actually do have two different sizes of the shims. And if I go back and look actually here in the DC1 manual, they do make a mention that you want to shim with the bigger shim on the opposite side of the screws. So we'll start with that and see how that looks. So I'm just going to throw one of those shims on there, and then the bearing, and then we're going to take one of our thinner shims, put it on this side, and grab our bearing. And then we're going to stick the diff inside of the case here. And then we will just lay this case right on top. So we got a little bit of diff wobble there. So I think I like using the two thin shims on the one side and the two thicker ones onto the other. That seems to give me pretty good balance as far as which way this thing is rocking back and forth. I like it pretty well. Everything is spinning freely. So I am pretty happy about that right there. So we're going to go ahead and just lay this puppy down here. And then we are going to actually apply some thread lock here. So you are going to have to get back into this thing time after time. So we do not want to use a lot of thread lock. And she is all together. We just basically had 4 screws to do the transmission up, as you can see. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then on this side, of course, is where our motor plate and everything else is going to go. Now the shock tower, of course, is going to go on the back here, but we are not going to mount it yet because we need to actually mount the new wheelie bar riser to that as well. And then, of course, we've got spots right there where our turnbuckles are going to go and everything, so pretty slick. Now right there is that hole that I was telling you about. You can see, and here is the tight little small screw that it comes with. And again, I'm just going to pop this in there, and you're not going to want to thread that in all the way. You're just going to want to have that in there kind of as like a little plug, but you're not going to want to put it all the way in, because if we screw it all the way in, I'll just show you here for an example. We are going to roll up against our gears. So actually there's enough space there. Good. Perfect. So I was totally wrong. So you can thread that all the way in, which is good because we do not want that falling out. So, all right, we are good to go with this tranny. We've got screws left over here for the shock tower and then one more long transmission screw, which I do not see where is going to go, but this thing is all done and ready to go. So I'm pretty happy with the way everything looks and has turned out. And it's, of course, it is going to get even better. So got this thing all built up. Next video, we're going to start tearing apart and putting this entire new rear end together on the DC1. Pretty stoked about that. Hopefully you guys will be along for the ride. So love y'all. Peace.